I want to dive into really the thought process in 2022, seeing how big these girls were, seeing the
Yeah.
conditioning. Um, I was shocked when I competed at the mile high in 22. There were a lot of Olympians there. I think I got eighth, and it was my fullest, my best look, you could say. But like, truthfully, I was like, I am nowhere near where I need to be in terms of size, and I've got growing to do. And in 22, there's a pretty big shift in terms of the evolution and what was being asked of girls, and also what girls were willing to do in terms of supplementation. And I guess, is that something, even at that time, did you sense that? Did you feel that pressure from those around you, from your coach, just from
Mhm.
social media?
Yeah. So I was natural, well, up until 2020, March of 2024. So turned pro naturally, first pro season naturally, and then yeah. So I told myself, I said, I'm probably going to be a natural athlete for life. Like I'm probably never going to have to use any sort of PED because I'm like, as stupid as this sounds, like I told myself, I said, I'm young, so I'm just never gonna have to use that stuff because it's healthy to do it without anything at all. And I was under that impression. And, you know, I knew that some people that I was up against, in a lineup, maybe they're using PEDs, maybe they're not. You don't know somebody's full story or anything like that. But I knew that, it comes with the sport. So I understand that I did not have that experience yet. So I couldn't expect a specific outcome or look if I still had just, baby muscle. And obviously PEDs doesn't solve everything, obviously, but I knew that it came with the sport. But for some reason I just thought, I'd be natural for life. But then 2023 from 2023 to 2024 grew completely naturally, like never touched anything. And then 2024, March of 2024 came, and I realized that, I do want to take this very seriously. And I also understand that as a natural athlete, when you're in that phase in prep where you're just grinding, you're grinding, you're 2 weeks out, your strength is just shot, your libido's shot, everything's shot. Um, I got my blood work done and my T3 was extremely low, just everything was just really low. My test has always been very low. I've never used testosterone though, even though doctors recommended me to be on TRT. I said no, I'm not. I'm just not interested in doing that. So 2024 came and I decided to start Anavar. And the reason that I chose this PED over anything else was just because, with research and what I was, reading about, talking to different people about, it was the safer, not beginner, but it was just like the safer thing. It was an oral, so I didn't have to pin or anything like that. So I was like, okay, we'll just start with 2.5, lowest dose, see how that works. And in all honesty, I didn't really notice that big of a difference. I really didn't. I've always been very strong in my lower half, so my legs, my quads, my glutes. I've always been able to lift a lot of weight. But one thing that the Anavar did help me with was mind muscle connection and just better pumps. But oh, and it helped me like hold on to muscle during those times where I would be, cutting down for a show, blah blah blah. But the first cycle that I did, I really didn't notice that big of a difference, if I'm being just upfront about it. And I think it's because I took the placebo effect out of it too, because my first day on it, I've actually never openly talked about this, so I hope you don't mind that I'm sharing this, but the first day that I took the Anavar, I went to the gym and I had a whole panic attack. I thought I was having like a medical emergency. I On my way to the gym, I pulled over to the side of the road because I couldn't swallow. I couldn't swallow and I was just freaking out. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, like I'm having an allergic reaction to oxandrolone. Like I knew I shouldn't have done this. Why did I do this? And even though my parents were well aware and all my friends and family, and I even like made an announcement on TikTok about it so my followers could see that I was being open and honest about it. So it wasn't necessarily guilt, but I was just like, why did I do this? I'm having an allergic reaction. So I called my boyfriend. He said, you're not having an allergic reaction, you're having a panic attack. You can't talk, you can't compose your thoughts right now, you can't swallow because you're having a panic attack. So I just sat in my car and I just tried to calm down, went to the gym, and just went about the rest of the day. And I never thought about it since. Like, I never thought about it since that happened. And I honestly think that panic attack was just, the moment that you put a PED in your body or even a peptide, you're no longer a natural athlete. You can no longer say that, hey, I'm natty, I'm this and that. So essentially, I think it was just a part of me letting go and being like, hey, I can't use this as leverage anymore. I can't say, oh, I didn't do this way because I'm not using this. It's like you have no excuse, You're in this sport. This is what the sport entails. Deal with it and grow up. And I think that was a little bit hard for me to process. So, that's all I've ever had experience with up until now. I've never used anything else. Um, and in all honesty, I my philosophy is less is more, or try to get as big as possible with the least amount of stuff as possible. So that's like my philosophy that I still go by. And obviously it's, agree to disagree. I'm not the most educated person about this, and I'm definitely not reputable or, well versed enough to be giving out any other opinions, but that's just my experience. Just like the mental side.
I mean, I really appreciate you sharing that. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I think so many people they don't realize that once you use a PED, it
Hmm.
isn't inherently just going to make you look the way that you want to look.
Exactly.
It's
And I was under that impression. I have dominant quads, and a lot of people at the gym were just joking. They were like, "Oh, the moment you hop on something, your quads are gonna blow up, and you're gonna transition to wellness. Like you're just gonna blow up." So I was just like, "Uh, really?" So I took it. That's what I expected in my head. Nope, didn't happen. Still too small in 2024.
girl,
So
you
it doesn't solve everything. It just helps. It helps. You still need to put in the work.
yeah, and that's I mean, like what you highlighted, it's anti-catabolic effects. So listeners who are like unsure of like, okay, like why are bikini competitors using Anavar, which I think like, to your credit, like it was a wise choice in the sense, like that one, we do know, we have a lot of studies to support dosing and how that plays out with long dose relative to virilization. So, I mean, like, I guess like, and I'm sure, imagine you share this sentiment too, is like, understanding that, like, yeah, it might not be risk-free, but it's the best option that we have right now. It's assuming, like, the quality is there and even being thoughtful about, like, TRT and, like, how that fits into the long game with you, I think is important. And it's honestly a difficult path to navigate with younger athletes, who essentially are going to be in positions where they might be exposing themselves to anabolics, and we don't know what your potential is like coming out of a prep if your test were to even just become like modestly like high, like in the 30s to 40s. um I say this all the time, like with younger athletes, like we don't want to like squash that potential to regain hormonal
Yeah.
function. So it doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, like if you're under this age you can't use TRT. I try to avoid like absolutes in that way. But I mean, like for myself, like I started TRT at 26, and a lot of people, if I was public about that then, like they would have had some things to say about it. But truly, like I think one is such an individualized decision, but it's also relative to what your goals are in the sport, what kind of resilience you have even in between, like outside of bodybuilding hormonally. So, I mean, like, I think the panic attack, even like highlighting how for you that very much was like a grieving process of like letting go, like, hey, I can't say that the reason I'm too small or not as conditioned is because I'm natural. And I resonate with that so much because I was that way when I started, back like in 2015. Like I shared that sentiment. And even once I started taking drugs, I was like, okay, like, like I have to show up and like really do the work because
Yeah.
I embarrassed if I don't look as good as I could look, knowing that I have leverage, like I have the advantage.